Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to the North Melbourne preview. And sorry, North fans, but I don't have much for you. And to be honest, I'm trying to remember last time I had anyone decent from the Roos. I've been racking my brain. They haven't been the most fantasy relevant side for some time. If you're a North fan out there, tell me otherwise, because I was going through the list, couple of potential breakouts, but otherwise I just didn't find too much. So not the most lively of previews, but anyway, in the lock, I've got Todd Goldstein, and he's not even a lock. I honestly couldn't find anyone else. I just think he's a bloke that some may look at because he did average 112.2 last year, and that was probably after we thought he was just about done. He had a great season a few years back, averaged 108, and then he went 94.8 and 101. But then he just had an absolute revival last year, particularly late. I think I reckon I traded him out probably 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through the season, upgraded him to maybe Gawn, and Goldstein almost went toe-to-toe with him in certain stages, so it didn't really work out. But I honestly couldn't find anyone else because no one's in my side as a Roo, so you tell me who the lock is, but I couldn't find many. And the risk isn't much better. I'm not pumping this video up at all, but Mason Wood is about all I could gather in terms that I felt really fitted the risk category. He's priced at $356K, and after a pretty average few seasons, really, he probably hasn't produced any real consistent footy over his career. A guy that's been spoken about as a big-time player and someone that's going to be a very good footballer at some point, it just hasn't happened yet. So, very interested to see. I think there was a fair bit of trade talk about him. Could that kick him into gear? Potentially, but you're never going to start him. Mason Wood will be in less than 1% of sides. So, again, I'm not giving you much there. But I set myself categories, and sometimes the clubs just don't have someone that sometimes I'm like, bang, bang, bang. There's 4 blokes, easy. They fit the category. The Roos were difficult. But the breakout contenders, there's some interesting stuff here, I feel. And Luke Davies-Uniacke is definitely one. Now, he's a very high pick from a couple of years ago. Now priced at $342K running through the midfield. And he's the type of player that I imagine all North Melbourne fans, who I've probably pissed off already in this video, but they would be definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do. The sort of bloke that they'd be expecting to really step up and take a lot more responsibility through the midfield. I like how he goes about it. Not always the best ball user from what I can gather, but certainly can win the footy well and was very, very highly rated as a youngster, which doesn't always correlate, but I think I've seen a few signs, particularly around the clearance, that suggests he can. And this one I quite like, Paul Ahern. Now, $337K, defender or midfielder. Now, if you go back and have a look at some of the latter stages of last year, he played more of a half-back attacking role, get the ball in his hands, use it, run with it. And he's quite a reasonable ball user. Certainly looks as if he'll be playing that role. If what I can gather from a bit of research, it looks as if that's where he's been training and where the ideal position for him is. So if he can play there, a bit of a rebounder, you'd be pretty gutsy to go with him. But I certainly think he could be a nice pick for your draft league, or if you're looking for a mid-price in the back line, maybe. But there are a few other options, and I haven't seen him in too many sides. A few, but not too many. But I quite like him. I've definitely thought about it, but watch him through the pre-season. And Jai Simpkin, he's a bit pricier than the other two, $383K. You can get him as a forward and a mid, but he's got class. I really like him. You look at Davies-Uniacke, and I sort of see hard worker, maybe the next Ben Cunnington. And Simpkin, I see real class and X factor, maybe the next Sean Higgins, if we're talking North Melbourne types. He's got a good step, seems to be a really smart player, and I definitely think he will be a player in a few years' time, like a really good player in a few years' time. Whether he can be a consistent scorer, we'll have to wait and see. I reckon monitor him because he could be a little draft smoky, but I just wanted to put his name out there because I don't mind him at all as a player. Now, who's no chance for my side? Ben Cunnington. I feel as if he gets talked up maybe a little bit too much than he actually should. Not as a footballer, he's an absolute jet, but as a scorer, I think there's a bit of a myth that You know, he wins the inside ball every week and just pumps out massive scores. We saw last year that he's very susceptible to the tag. Now, he's an outstanding footballer, in the coalface, capable of winning as much contested footy as anyone. Clearance king. But he's only averaged over 100 once, and that was last year, which surprised me. And for much of last year, he was dominating. I think that average was pushing about 110 after about 11 or so rounds. But back end of the year saw him produce scores of 59, 54, 66, and 46. So we saw the taggers get to him, which surprised me because a bloke who wins it so good on the inside, I thought would be sort of an unstoppable type. But they seemed to get to him. Yeah, it's probably a bit harsh on one of the best players in the comp, but I just want to put it out there because maybe it's just me, maybe it's just circles I float in, but I hear his name get brought up in the conversation of a starting mid. And honestly, I just don't think he's anywhere near it. I think at best he's about 105 average bloke, and I'm not sure that's going to be enough. Certainly not, at that price. So very, very good player, but not one for our SuperCoach sides, in my opinion. So let me know what you think on North Melbourne. It was probably the toughest preview I've had to do. It was not much jumped off the page for me, and I've probably had all my North Melbourne supporters unsubscribe, so that probably hasn't been the greatest thing to do, but I'll be back with another preview. We're getting pretty close now. I'll have to start thinking of some more content, probably player profiles and a few different things. Shorty's got a couple of little things in the works, so stay tuned for that over the next week. But I'll be back soon, talking more SuperCoach. Cheers.